Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Rama Rama
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Hare Hare
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances of Gashishra Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to morning Bhagavatam class. This morning we continue with Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 17, verses 10 and 11. And the chapter is entitled The Punishment and Reward of Kali. We're happy to have His Grace Vishnugada Prabhu with us. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Vancha kalpabhyascha kripasindavevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, and it's all yours.
One consideration in the big while we're waiting for things to start. Once in a while, it might be good to have a Srila Prabhupada Kirtan also.
Thank you, Prabhu, for suggesting. Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Other devotees can join in also if they like. So we don't get too many chances for kirtan, and even though it's a little disjointed, at least it's some kirtan.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Others may unmute if they like, encouraging them. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Baradhari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri
Baradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Baradhari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Baradhari
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana
Yashodanandana
Braja Jana Ranjana
Jamuna Tira Bonachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Jamuna Tira Bonachari
Yamuna Tira
Vanachari.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha
Madhava
Kunja Bihari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Baradhari
Gopi Jana
Vallabha
Giri
Giri
Baradhari
Baradhari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Baradhari
Gopi
Jana Vallabha Giri Baradhari.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana
Jashodanandana Braja Janaranjana
Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana
Yamunatira Banachari
Yamunatira Vanachari
Yamunatira Banachari
Yamunatira Vanachari
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya
Radha
Madhava
Kunja Bihari
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya
Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahams Paribrajak Acharya Ashtatara Rashi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Shani Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai
Jai.
ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai
Jai.
Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai
Jai.
प्रेम से कहा श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय
Jai.
श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय
Jai.
वृंदावन धाम की जय
Jai.
नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय
Jai.
गंगा माई की जय
Jai.
जमुना माई की जय
Jai.
तुलसी देवी की जय
Jai.
भक्ति देवी की जय
Jai.
समवेता भक्त वृंद की जय
Jai.
गौर प्रेमानंदे.
Hari Hari Bol.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glory to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Hari Hari Bol.
Shri Shukra
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane. Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesh Shunivari Paschatya Deshatarine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 We're reading, studying, and discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 17th chapter. Today's texts are text 10 and 11. Yasya Rashtre Praja Sarvas Trasyante Sadva Sadhubi Tasya Mattasya Nashyanti Kirtir Ayur Bhago Gati Esharagyam Paro Dharmo Hyartanam Arti Nigraha Ata Ena Vadishyami Bhuta Druham Asattamam Yasya Rashtre Praja Sarvas Trasyante Sadva Sadhubi Tasya Mattasya Nashyanti Kirtir Ayur Bhago Gati Esharagyam Paro Dharmo Hyartanam Arti Nigraha Ata Enam Vedishyami Bhutadruham Asattamam Yasya Rashtre Praja Sarvas Trasyante Sadva Sadhubhi Tasya Mattasya Nashyanti Kirtir Ayur Bhago Gati Esharagyam Paro Dharmo Hyartanam Arti Nigraha Ata Enam Vedishyami Bhutadruham Asattamam. Please chant.
Yasya Rashtre Praja Sarvas Trasyante Sadhya Sadhubihi Tasya Mattasya Nashyanti Kirtir Ayur Bhago Gatihi Esha Rajnam Paro Dharmo Yartanam Arti Nigraha Ata Enam Vadhishyami Bhuta Druham Asattamam.
Yes, Yashya Rashtre Praja Sarva Tashyante Sadvyashu asadubhi tasya nasyanti krita ayu bhagogati isharagyam parodamo yatanam ati nigraha ataneham vadishyami utaduham asatamam. Hare Krishna.
Yasya rastre praja sarvas trashyante sadhvi tasya matasya nashyanti kirtir ayurbhago gati esharagyam parodharmo yartanam arti nigraha ata enam vadishyami bhuta druham ashatamam. Hare Krishna.
You don't like my tune for this chant, huh?
You know, Prabhu, actually, I was going to copy your tune, but then when I heard Prakshit, I lost your tune. And I said, oh, I don't want to make a fool of myself and ask your tune. But
Okay.
Actually, I came in a little late, so I didn't hear your tune properly. So
I like Vishnugada Prabhu's tune, and I completely lost track when you started chanting.
Sorry, Prabhu.
That's the old tune that Pradumna Prabhu used to use.
Oh, okay.
Yasya, one whose Rashtre, in the state, Raja, living beings, Sarva, one and all, Trasyante, are terrified, Sadvi, O chaste one, Asadubhi, by the miscreants, Tasya his, Mattasya of the illusion, Nashyanti vanishes, Kirti, fame, Ayu, duration of life, Bhaga, fortune, Gati, good rebirth, Isha, these are Ragyan, of the king, Para, superior dharma, occupation, he, certainly, Artanam, of the sufferers, Arti, sufferings, Nigraha, subduing. Ata, therefore, Enam, this man, Vidishyami, I shall kill, Bhutadruham, revolter against other living beings, Asattamam, the most wretched. Translation. O chaste one, the king's good name, duration of life, and good rebirth vanish when all kinds of living beings are terrified by miscreants in his kingdom. It is certainly the prime duty of the king to subdue first the sufferings of those who suffer. Therefore, I must kill this most wretched man because he is violent against other living beings. Purport. When there is some disturbance caused by wild animals in a village or town, the police or others take action to kill them. Similarly, it is the duty of the government to kill at once all bad social elements such as thieves, dacoits, and murderers. The same punishment is also due to animal killers, because the animals of the state are also the praja. Praja means one who has taken birth in the state, and this includes both men and animals. Any living being who takes birth in a state has the primary right to live under the protection of the king. The jungle animals are also subject to the king, the jungle animals, and they also have a right to live. So what to speak of domestic animals like cows and bulls? Any living being, if he terrorizes other living beings, is a most wretched subject. And the king should at once kill such a disturbing element. As the wild animal is killed when it creates disturbances, similarly, any man who unnecessarily kills or terrifies the jungle animals or other animals, unnecessarily kills or terrifies The jungle animals or other animals must be punished at once. By the law of the Supreme Lord, all living beings, in whatever shape they may be, are the sons of the Lord. And no one has any right to kill another animal unless it is so ordered by the codes of natural law. The tiger can kill a lower animal for his subsistence, but a man cannot kill an animal for his subsistence. That is the law of God, who has created the law that a living being subsists by eating another living being. Thus, the vegetarians are also living by eating other living beings. Therefore, the law is that one should live only by eating specific living beings as ordained by the law of God. The Isha Upanishad directs that one should live by the direction of the Lord and not at one's sweet will. A man can subsist on varieties of grains, fruits, and milk ordained by God, then there is no need of animal food, save and except in particular cases. The illusion king or executive head, even though sometimes advertised as a great philosopher and learned scholar, will allow slaughterhouses in the state without knowing that torturing poor animals clears the way to hell for such foolish kings or executive heads. The executive head must always be alert to the safety of the prajas, both man and animal, and inquire whether a particular living being is harassed at any place by another living being. The harassing living being must at once be caught and put to death, as shown by Maharaj Parikshit. The people's government or government by the people should not allow killing of innocent animals by the sweet will of foolish government men. They must know the codes of God, as mentioned in the revealed scriptures. Maharaj Parikshit quotes here that according to the codes of God, the irresponsible king or state executive jeopardizes his good name, duration of life, power, and strength, and ultimately his progressive march towards a better life and salvation after death. Such foolish men do not even believe in the existence of the next life. While commenting on this particular verse, we have in our presence the statement of a great modern politician who has recently died and left his will, which discloses his poor fund of knowledge of the codes of God mentioned by Maharaj Parikshit. The politician was so ignorant of the codes of God that he writes, I do not believe in any ceremonies, and to submit to them even as a matter of form would be hypocrisy and an attempt to delude ourselves and others. I have no religious sentiment in the matter. Contrasting these statements of a great politician in the modern age with those of Maharaj Parikshit, we find a vast difference. Maharaj Parikshit was pious according to the scriptural codes, whereas the modern politician goes by his personal belief and sentiments. Any great man of the material world is, after all, a conditioned soul. He is bound by his hands and feet by the ropes of material nature, and still the foolish conditioned soul thinks himself as free to act by whimsical sentiments. The conclusion is that people in the time of Maharaj Parikshit were happy, and the animals were given proper protection because the executive head was not whimsical or ignorant of God's laws. Foolish, faithless creatures try to avoid the existence of the Lord and proclaim themselves secular at the cost of valuable human life. The human life is especially meant for knowing the science of God, but foolish creatures, especially in this age of Kali, instead of knowing God scientifically, make propaganda against religious belief as well as the existence of God, even though they are always bound by the laws of God, by the symptoms of birth, death, old age, and disease. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Shayam Rupagirahmayam Dadati Shapandantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadvaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. O chaste one, the king's good name, duration of life, and good rebirth vanish when all kinds of living beings are terrified by miscreants in his kingdom. It is certainly the prime duty of the king to subdue first the sufferings of those who suffer. Therefore, I must kill this most wretched man because he is violent against other living beings. Before speaking, I'd like to ask blessings and permission from all devotees, and particularly those who are senior by age or by advancement in Krishna consciousness.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. He is speaking here is Maharaj Parikshit coming upon Kali, beating the legs of the cow and the bull. And he's speaking his conviction, not that he came up with this idea himself, but he's following the codes of set down by Manu for proper administration of a kingdom. So in the verses, we see a couple of words that are quite interesting. Parikshit Maharaj says, Praja Sarva, all the prajas, all the living beings in his kingdom are to be protected. And then he says, that's the parodharmo. Have you heard that word, but that phrase before, parodharmo? Yes. In what context?
The primary duty of a person is to render service to the transcendent Lord.
Yes. So in that context, in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, second chapter, Sutta Goswami says, Savai pungsam parodharmo yato bhakti adhoksaje ahoituki apratiyata yayatma suprasidati. That the prime duty of all beings is to render devotional service unto the Supreme Lord. Prime duty, many duties, but that's the prime duty. And that in order to completely satisfy the self, it must be unmotivated and uninterrupted. Oh, parodharmo. That's the overall parodharmo. And here we're talking about the parodharmo, or the prime duty of the king, the administrator, president. Parodharmo, in that, for that person, the prime duty is to, what is the prime duty? Subdue the sufferings. Not allow them to be terrified by the miscreants in the kingdom. Therefore, you have the word kshatriya. Kshatriya means that was from hurt, what protects the prajas from hurt. And Srila Prabhupada comments that just as when an animal is running wild and attacking other living beings wantonly, then the king will kill that animal. Sometimes that would happen in the Vedic times, that a lion or tiger would begin attacking human beings. They would get a taste for human flesh, and so the king would go with his sword and kill the lion or tiger. When I was a young boy, my family visited. They lived in France for a year, outside of Paris, and we lived on a street called, anybody know French? Rue de Loup Pendu. Rue de Loup Pendu means the street of the hanged wolf, because apparently in the 17th century, at one point, there was kind of a reduction in the amount of food available to the wolves, and so they began attacking human beings. So the king and his men captured the wolves and hung them to kill them. Back in the early 1900s, there was a scare on the New Jersey shore, because many bathers in the ocean were being attacked by, well, nobody knew what was it. Some people said it was a shark, a great white shark, but other people, the scientists of the time said, no, sharks never attack human beings. This is the story of Jaws. It's a true story. Anyway, so, but that, so the response was, no, just keep on, this was just an isolated incident. We don't know how come it's happening. Keep on bathing in the ocean, no problem. So after a few people were eaten alive, then finally the government responded to try to catch the shark. Eventually it was caught, and inside the shark they found the body of the son of the newspaper magnate in New York City who had been eaten. Anyway, so when there's wild animals who are terrorizing other beings, especially human beings, but also animals, then they're fit to be killed, because the duty of the king is to protect from hurt, from terrorizing, unnecessary killing. Not only humans, but animals as well. This idea that the animals are praja is not accepted in the United States. Very, very little understanding of this. We see in the Mahabharata, there was one of the sons of Kunti by the name of Karna, who, while hunting, he accidentally, or he thought he was attacking a deer, but in fact he killed a cow. And the Brahmin whose cow it was very angry. So Karna said, don't worry, no, I'll give you 100 cows. 100 cows to replace this cow. So don't be angry. Don't. But what did the Brahmin do? Do you remember?
The Brahmin cursed him, Prabhu.
And why is that? Well, he could have had 100 cows. Instead, he didn't. Why didn't he just take the 100 cows?
Because I think he said, if I remember correctly, that the 100 cows will not be the same cow that he killed.
Yes. If you think about it, if somebody comes and kills your mother, your daughter, and they say, "Oh, I'll give you 50 other kids," that's not going to make any difference, is it? Because the consciousness was, think about it, the consciousness is, this is a being, a particular individual being. You cannot replace that being. You give 100 cows, doesn't matter. So there's the consciousness of the animals are also praja, because they're born in that land, and they deserve complete the adequate protection from unnecessary killing, terroristic activities. Unfortunately, in the United States, this principle of animals' right to life is not very robustly recognized. There was a Supreme Court decision about 10 years ago where it was brought to the attention of the Supreme Court. You have to create a case and it goes appeal. So what was the issue was that some people were making crush films. You know what a crush film is? I didn't know what a crush film was until I read about this. Where people, they film animals being crushed to death by somebody, either a little kitten crushed under, it's pretty gruesome, right, under somebody's foot. And there's certain people that enjoy looking at that. Perhaps somebody like Mrigari, before he was enlightened by Narad Muni. So anyway, in the lower courts, it was recognized that causing unnecessary pain to an animal, even an animal, was against the interests of the state, and to it should not be allowed to continue. But it was appealed all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court reversed it. I don't know if any lawyers are on here, but it's very interesting. Although just recently, in May, I think it was, there was a decision that California apparently has a law that if pig meat, pork is sold in California, the pig must be raised and killed humanely. You follow? Pigs must be raised and killed humanely. Otherwise, that pig meat can't be sold in California. So some rancher objected and said this was a restriction on the free exercise of, agriculture. It got appealed to the Supreme Court. And just in May of 2023, one of the first recognitions of animal rights was they said, yes, that's okay. California can restrict and require in their state that pigs, when they're raised for slaughter, it's allowed that they must be treated humanely. Of course, forget the idea that they're killed at the end. But anyway, there's some acceptance of animal rights. When I was reading an article about some person in Morristown, New Jersey, who was arrested because he had purchased some horses and was not treating them very well. They weren't being fed regularly. They weren't being brushed regularly. And so he was accused and convicted of animal cruelty. Yes. And so he was convicted of animal cruelty, and the animals were removed from his care. He was given a fine. And then in the bottom of the article, it said, what happened to the horses that were his property, supposedly? What do you know what happened to them? Yes, they were sold for slaughter. So this consciousness is go ahead, Parikshit Prabhu, you were going to say something.
That's worse.
This is the state of consciousness in this country. The animals are for exploitation, and slightly some people, understand, but the Vedic system was more woke, we'd say. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmani Gavi Hashtini Shuni Shaiva Swapakecha Pandita Samradashana. Someone who's spiritually elevated understands that the same soul that's there within the human being is also the life principle in all species of life. As Lord Krishna says, Sarva Yoneshu Kante Aham Bija Pradapita. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that he is the seed-giving father of all species of life. So this consciousness is wanting in human society today. And because people think, oh, the animal has no soul, that's kind of a Christian background thing. So therefore it has no soul, we can kill it. We think that humans have sovereignty over the animals, so we can kill them. But a king has sovereignty over his subjects or her subjects, queen, but that doesn't mean they're allowed to kill their subjects because they have sovereignty. So this is a very elevated consciousness that one needs to be respectful, not only of human beings, but of animals. All living entities, even the ant, not unnecessarily cause trouble. Then here in this verse also, Maharaj Parikshit is saying he must kill this Kali because of his transgression of the laws of God, causing trouble. He hadn't killed the cow and the bull, but he was unnecessarily torturing the cow and the bull. Interesting point is that there are different, according to the laws of Manu, there are different aggressors the word in Sanskrit is atatayana, that the administrative head must kill. You know, there's 6 of them mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. You remember those 6 aggressors? Anybody? Are you with me? No.
No. Who administers poison?
One who administers poison. That's right. That's one. Should be killed. Anybody else?
Getting someone's land.
Yes, usurping their land. Right.
Someone's wife?
Kidnapping or stealing the wife. Yeah. Anybody? Attack with deadly weapon. Plunder the riches. Set fire to the house. That's 6. Set fire to the dwelling. 6, 6, 6. And these are the laws of codes of Manu say that these people are to be killed, not by you, but by the administrative state head or the arrangement of that head. And that there no sin is results on the part of the person who kills those aggressors. These are very strict laws. Nowadays, you know, we usually think the people think that we can have the right. Capital punishment is meant for murderers, but not others. And the idea here, Srila Prabhupada seems to be encouraging, is that swift and strong punishment is a deterrent for crime. Would you agree? What do you think? Anybody?
It's a strong say again, Prabhu. I missed the last half of the capital punishment is a strict and strong deterrent.
Deterrent for crime, yeah.
You know, Prabhu, I know that law exists in my hometown in Singapore, and they were very strict. And I mean, of course, Singapore was a very small country, but because of capital punishment, they got some order in that country. So at least coming from that country, you know, a high C being pretty helpful. I don't know, pretty good.
Yeah, they have something called, there's this international system to measure crime in different locations. It's called I just looked at this. It's called the Crime Index. And they tabulate the frequency of 8 different crimes. One is murder, one is rape, one is armed robbery, one is aggravated assault. Those are the 4 violent crimes. And then 4 property crimes is theft, arson, burglary, and motor vehicle theft. So some agencies, they compile and keep rates of these types of crimes, frequencies of these crimes, and they call it and put it together called the Crime Index for various countries and various cities in the world. Well, you'll find it's true. You'll find that Singapore has a very, very low crime index. And where would you find, but on the other hand, where would you find the United States? Any guesses?
Probably a high crime index.
It's not that high. It's kind of in the middle. It's kind of the middle.
Mhm.
But, you know, United States has the most people incarcerated per capita in any country in the world. So you'd expect if it was just, you know, the severity of punishment or the likelihood of punishment alone, that would be it would be one of the lower crime index countries, but it's not. Interesting fact is that in the United States, there are many cities and states that are, you know, the frequency of crime and the crime index is kept. Any guesses at what the highest crime index city in the country is? Any guesses?
New York.
I was
Good
gonna-
Philadelphia,
guess,
probably?
good guess, but no,
Not
What?
New York.
not New York. Not even close.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. The Philadelphia?
Good guess, but no. Think of we got Maharaj Parikshit here. He's the head king, the in charge, and he's making sure that this Kali person isn't continue his nefarious deeds. Would you be surprised if I told you the highest crime index city in the country is Washington, D.C., where all the
Nah,
administrators
I'm not
are?
surprised. Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
I can
yeah.
see that. Yeah, DC.
By a long shot. By a long shot, the highest. Yeah. So anyway, to me, that seemed very interesting that where the administrators are centrally located, the federal administrators, it's the highest crime rate. But anyway, those who study these things say that there are a lot of factors that contribute to the figure that they arrive at as the crime rate. Maybe you can think of some, because really what happens is not just, it's not an objective figure, but they just gather the information and the data from local, police forces. So, Philadelphia sends there to an FBI office, and it's not like the FBI or any overall agency really makes sure that it's being done properly, but they just, whatever the local law enforcement agencies supply to the central office of the FBI, that's what's reported. So can you imagine any other factors that might be influencing the crime index as reported by the FBI agency?
Crime that's not reported, crime that happens, but the local people in the area don't call police, therefore the police never get wind of what had happened.
Yeah, sure. I remember when I first came to Philadelphia, somebody broke in well, at that point it was very common that people break into your car, smash your window, and take stuff. And so I called the police, and they said, well, we're not going to report this. We're not going to report this. You know why? Well, we want to keep our crime statistics low so that we can advertise that we're not, it's not there's so much crime going on. People will move here. That's what we were told to do. Yeah. So that's one. Yeah. Other factors are there too, access
But
to.
Prabhu, if they don't report the crime and because they want to keep the crime rate low, so even the crime index, so that means even with Washington DC being the highest crime index is really not so true then, because there might be other states that might have it and they're not reporting it.
That's right.
Yeah.
It could be that Washington, it wouldn't be surprising to me if all the cities have a similar policy. That would be my guess. I don't know that for a fact. I'm not going to go investigate at Washington, D.C., but everybody wants to look good. So when it's a whole game, when you use statistics to try to say something, to make certain points, there's a murder rate in various countries. It's just one aspect of crime. So the murder rate in various countries like India, would you say it's higher or lower than the murder rate in the United States? And what murder rate means per 100,000 people.
India probably will have a lower one compared to the
Yeah,
United
it's about
States.
half the rate of United States. I know when I was in graduate school, somebody made a presentation about dowry murders. Do you know dowry murders? Yeah, so they hopefully they don't have them in Singapore, but in the more traditional type of marriage, then when there's a marriage arrangement, usually it's the wife, the bride's family that gives some dowry to the couple, but also the family of the groom. So it's usually a nice amount. Of course, it's not always that way. During the time of the Pandavas, when Bhishma Dev went to the Madra province and got Madri and for Pandu as his wife. Madri's brother Shalya said, "Well, in our arrangement, our system, you've got to give dowry to us." So it wasn't always the women's side would give dowry to the men. But anyway, so and during somebody was making a presentation on dowry murders and how when there's a marriage and the groom's family doesn't get enough dowry, they'll kill the wife, they'll kill the bride, so he can get married again and gets another dowry murder. You never heard of that? Anyway, so they were decrying the Indian civilization because of that. So I responded, well, we have a similar thing in United States. We call it murder for insurance. People have life insurance. Okay, people get away with it that way. Anyway, there's so many different kind of crimes that people are involved in. And why are people involved in all these different crimes? Because of the influence of the modes of nature, especially the modes of passion and ignorance. And as long as we got the modes of passion and ignorance prominent in our consciousness, these kinds of things are going on. Srila Prabhupada, in his discussion with one of the police agency personnel in Chicago in 1975, there was a big uproar because the crime rate in Chicago at that time was soaring. And so he read an article, Crime, Why and What to Do About It. So he suggested that to this man who came, by the devotees invited him to come and speak with Srila Prabhupada. The first thing he said was, as long as people are on the level of animals, you can't expect things to get better. That's what he first said. Can we ask the dogs and cats to be very peaceful, to get along well? Please get along. No, it's not going to happen. So he said, first thing is, it's important to people to establish and understand the principles of religion. To understand the goal of life is for spiritual practice, spiritual advancement, not just to eat, sleep, be merry, and enjoy. So then the police administrator said, well, we're a lot of Christians here. We have a lot of Christians in Chicago, many Christians. And Srila Prabhupada's response was? He said, I know I've met many Christians, but I have yet to find one who's actually following the laws of Jesus Christ, he said, which is very interesting. So the man had to admit that was probably true. Okay, good point. He could. And then here we see Parikshit Maharaj is prepared to kill Kali. Does he kill Kali?
No.
Well, is that interesting, right? He says he should kill him, but then Kali surrenders and he doesn't kill him. And of course, there's consequences to that, but he doesn't kill him. So in the Krishna consciousness movement, what is our program, our philosophy, our incentive to address crime, to reduce, as Parikshit Maharaj is telling, to reduce the animal killers, those who terrorize others, those who are criminals in human society. Of course, on one hand, the administrative state may kill them, but for us, the Hare Krishna people, what is our program?
For the most part, we're inducing chanting of the holy name.
Yeah.
And that changes the mindset. Yeah. I
thought I would read Srila Prabhupada's response to this police official who came. Oh, he was a lieutenant in the police force in Chicago, which is a notorious police force, by the way. So, he, like I said, first he said that people have to come to the level of human beings. Then he said, look, this is lieutenant. He said, If I could return to my original purpose in coming, might I ask you what advice you could give to assist us in reducing crime? Srila Prabhupada, yes. I have begun to outline that at the beginning of our talk. You should give us the facility to chant the holy name of God and distribute prasad. Then there will be a tremendous change in the population. I came alone from India, and now I have many followers. What did I do? I asked them to sit down and chant the Hare Krishna mantra, and afterwards I distributed a little prasad. If this is done on a mass scale, the entire society will become very pleasing. This is a fact. Lieutenant, would you want to start the program in an area of affluence or an area of poverty? Srila Prabhupada, we do not draw such distinctions. Any place easily available to all kinds of men would be very suitable to hold Sankirtan. There is no restriction that only the poor men need the benefit, but rich do not. Everyone needs to be purified. Do you think that criminality exists only in the poorer section of society? Lieutenant, no. But it'd be to ask whether there would be a more beneficial influence, more of a strengthening of the community if the program were held in a poorer rather than an affluent area. Srila Prabhupada. Our treatment is for the spiritually diseased person. When a person is afflicted with a disease, there are no distinctions between a poor and rich man. They are both admitted to the same hospital. Just as the hospital should be in a place where both the poor man and rich man can easily come, the location of the Sankirtan facility should be easily accessible to all. Since everyone is materially infected, everyone should be able to take advantage. Enechi Oshadi Maya, Nashi Baralagi, Harinam Mahamantra Lao Togi Tuimagi. So for the diseased person, there's a diet and there's medicine. Diet and medicine. So the diet is Krishna Prasadam. And the medicine is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai. Hari Bol.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for such a nice class. And always, as I always say, always making it so interactive. Would like to ask devotees if any questions, any comments, clarification, or doubts, please do unmute yourself and you can either, yes, go ahead, Parikshit.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, thank you very much.
Prabhu.
Please keep my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. As far as the crime rate, and when you brought up those the questions, a series of questions about cities and the crime rate, I remember some reasons have been given by some states not to execute people because sometimes there have been wrong accusations of prisoners involving murder, and therefore some states have been kind of hesitant to take the life of a prisoner. It would be unfair. The point is, if somebody is killed, only to find out through the justice system that they were not the criminal. So I don't know, I'd like you to comment on that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think it was in the 70s that, this issue was quite strongly looked at, and they looked at all the people who were given capital punishment, in various states, and they found that it was a much higher frequency of people who were from a African American or Native American background were executed versus a Caucasian background. So for the same crimes, same type of crimes, but so they called a moratorium on that, at least from a federal point of view. Yeah, so there's all kinds of corruption in the judicial system. It might be local, it might be federal, but from a Shastric standpoint, Srila Prabhupada says that person was actually guilty of murder, actually guilty, they'll benefit by being executed because they don't have to pay in their next life for that sin. Problem is, like I said, the justice system, there are all kinds of things that go on that are really questionable. Like they'll torture somebody into confession, and especially if they don't have a good lawyer, right? They'll torture somebody into a confession, and then they'll use that because they want to make their statistics. Once they arrest somebody, they don't want to let the person go because that'll make them look bad. All kinds of nutty things goes on. But if the person is actually guilty, and there's this thing called the Innocence Project. I'm sure you've heard about it, where they have back in the 80s and 90s or before, there was no forensic test that could really identify an individual by their blood or other parts of their body DNA. And so many people were convicted just on eyewitness evidence, which it's not very reliable, but they try to get it. But they still kept the evidence of, with blood or other things on it. And later, when DNA testing became available, many people have been exonerated because they were falsely convicted. Well, if we can have, as far as possible, a good system of justice, and we know that we actually know that the person has done the crime, then we'll recommend capital punishment. But of course, there's different levels of capital punishment also. So someone who's 12 years old and they pick up the gun and all that kinds of, there's all different levels of stuff. But certainly it's part of the conversation. The capital punishment should be part of the conversation according to the Vedic viewpoint. Should it be applied in all circumstances? No, but should it be applied in certain circumstances? From here we see not only for the killers of human beings, but for the killers of animals and for other crimes as well. Those punishments were recommended by Manu. That's quite severe. I know. What do you have to say, Prabhu? I'm sure you have something to say on that one.
It's a very sensitive matter. When you were talking, I also thought of the other ways, what you call it? I forget the name, but okay, I'll describe it. When they use the machine and hook it up.
Oh, lie detector.
Lie detector, exactly. Lie detector. I don't know how far that plays into, or how much.
All kinds of little schemes and little tricks to try to get people to confess. I could tell you a story. I was raised in the Midwest. Okay, in the Midwest, and I was raised to think, policemen are all good guys. There was a show growing up, Andy Griffith's show. Who's Andy Griffith of Mayberry? That the policeman is just a benign guy who's really helpful and all that stuff. So that's my background anyway. So it's an interesting story. Well, several times when doing Sankirtan, we'd get arrested for something, and then the policeman would lie on the stand. That was shocking to me. The real shocker came at a certain point when there was a devotee who came from Guyana. This is a personal story. A devotee from Guyana. In Guyana, the government there would restrict the importation, except for personal use, which was very limited, of things like dal and rice and stuff for temples. So this devotee used to gather up the collections for a year and come to the United States and buy rice, dal for the temples there in Guyana, and then take it once a year. He would take it. So he would come with maybe $20,000 worth of stuff. Anyway, So when he came to the United States, he deposited with the treasurer in the Long Island Temple. That was when Long Island Temple was ISKCON kind of stuff. But then the person who was the treasurer cheated and stole the money. He cheated and stole the money. So he didn't have a car, so he called me up and he said, "Can you drive me? I want to go talk to this person. He's going to leave in a few days. I know that, so I need to talk to him, see if we can get some of our money back." So I said, "Okay, yeah, sure, I'll drive you." So I drove him, and we went to his house. His wife was there, and she said, "Well, he just left for the train station." So I drove him to the train station. He got out, and they started having an argument right there on the train platform. He said, and the guy starts to shout, "Help, help, help, I'm being attacked, I'm being attacked." So I thought, what in the world is going on? So I drove away. Then I thought, well, I can't leave him there. So after about 10 minutes, I come back. And then the police, about 10 police cars, they grabbed me out, threw me on the ground and put a gun to my head, along with the devotee I was with, and they put us in a cop car, brought it to this was in Mineola, Long Island. And my friend was from Guyana, so he had a dark complexion. So I could hear, they had put us in two separate rooms. I could hear him beating the guy, beating him, bang, 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 beating him, and got him to sign a confession that he had tried to kidnap this guy. Completely ridiculous, completely ridiculous. But and then they had made him sign a paper saying he was never hit. Also, they made it, so this is like a tiny little town in Mineola, Long Island, for this thing. So what the heck do police do in other places? So yeah, from that I could understand that what other people probably go through in their when they're arrested, and the police have a certain idea about who's guilty. And so what happened was, the guy, in the meantime, the guy who stole the money, he flew off to India with the money. He gets away in the
Very
meantime.
unfortunate. Very
Yeah.
unfortunate.
So I mean, these things go on. These things go on. And but so given that, in that atmosphere, you can understand how Srila Prabhupada's emphasis, at least in talking with the lieutenant at the police officer in Chicago, was not on heavy punishment, but on the aspect of changing people's hearts as the real ultimate effective method to stop this criminal behavior. I thought that's an interesting point. Prabhupada doesn't mention in his discussion punishment. He doesn't. He could. Those who are experts in studying crime, they say that punishment results in about, strong punishment results in about 25% of reduction of crime. That's what they say, which is not nothing, but it's also not everything. Because you can punish, but as long as a person's heart remains dirty, they'll just do it again. They'll go into jail or get some punishment, and then they'll do it again. So how do you stop the criminal activity from happening again? Got to cleanse the heart. And how do you cleanse the heart? You can wash your body, but how do you get inside to cleanse the consciousness? Very hard. Lord Chaitanya gave us this method. It's very special, very wonderful. Hare Krishna, Hare Ranam, Hare Ranam, Hare Ranam, Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, 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 Gatiranyata. Long-winded answer. Long-winded, very long-winded.
Very nice answer, Prabhu. Actually, it's not, I wouldn't say it's long-winded. It was definitely an eye-opener.
Thank you very much.
Was that a shock to you that they put me down on the ground and give me a gun to the head? Gun to the
Yes.
head.
Yeah,
Oh,
police
Were you terrified?
What's that?
Were you terrified?
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, we had to spend lawyer fees. The guy ran away in a few days. Flew back to India, but we didn't find that out. And we had to go to all these arraignments, and we were in jail for like 3 days. And, incredible. So like Srila Prabhupada says in the, there's the story of Mandak Muni, when the thieves take shelter of the ashram of Mandak Muni. And he says, as usually happens, they arrested the Muni instead of the dacoits, right? Yeah, that's usually that's what usually what happens.
Prabhu, I'm sure that you have so many more pastimes, I think is a better word to use than stories about all, like what you just shared, because I remember you also saying that when you were returning from some service in Brooklyn on a subway and someone got you on gunpoint from the back and you chanted in a Shringadev prayer and you just
yeah,
called
yeah.
it Shringadev. I'm sure, Prabhu, you have so many pastimes that one day we would love to sit and just hear these pastimes, but probably
Well,
one.
The reason I cited that one about the that arrest was to show that as Parikshit Prabhu was saying, there's so many different variables here that in this Kali Yuga, the police department, at least at a local level, I'll tell you that my father, his stepfather was a policeman in Detroit in the 1930s. Okay, so my father would say, yeah, actually, they had a garage, and the garage was full of stolen stuff, because the police, they arrest somebody and they kept it in his garage, and he sells it stuff, all kinds of stuff like that goes on, and that's not reported as a crime, right? So anyway, it's hard to believe. I'm not saying that you can't trust an individual policeman here or there, but stuff goes on like that, and it's hard to.
It's Kali Yuga, Prabhu. I
Yeah.
think that's the conclusion.
So in Kali Yuga, the safest way, the doubtless and the safest way for success is the chanting of the holy names. Hare Krishna, yes. Okay, Prabhu, thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. And thank you for
Krishna.
all the devotees for joining us. Vanchakraptubhyascha, Kripasindhavebhya, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Have a wonderful day. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
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 Oh, glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.